Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Glad to welcome you back to the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Roll Tide, it is time for Crimson Drive presented by Coca-Cola, as we're live every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Central here on our Facebook page to give you the latest on Alabama athletics. It's time to take a look at our headlines on our RJ Young Smartboard that is again furnished by RJ Young, the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. Take a look at some of the headlines coming up, starting with this show. First of all, we'll have some booth cam highlights from the Swamp. Take a look back at Alabama's 2-point victory against the Florida Gators on Saturdays. You'll get to watch Eli Gold call all the big moments from Alabama against Florida. Then we'll also have Coach's Checklist from Monday as Coach Saban met with the media, talked a lot about the Florida game, but then also started to turn his attention towards Saturday's matchup with the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. We'll have a conversation with Tom Hart of the SEC Network. He'll be calling Alabama against Southern Miss on the SEC Network coming up on Saturday. He's actually called 2 of Alabama's first 4 games of the year. And then finally, we'll be joined by Wayne Davis, who is still the all-time leading tackler in Crimson Tide history. He was a great linebacker in the middle of the 80s for Alabama. So he'll be our Alabama Legends interview coming up at the end of the show. Take a look at our football headlines for today. Of course, Alabama off to a 3-0 start to this 2021 season. A narrow win, but a good win against Florida. That's such a tough place to play. Crimson Tide got the victory 31-29. Great to see that Will Anderson Jr. was healthy for that ball game. If you look back on last week's Crimson Drive shows, talked over and over about will Wood Anderson play in this ball game. Certainly did. He became the SEC Defensive Player of the Week for all the great tackles that he had against Florida and tackles for a loss. He was just really disruptive, like we're used to seeing from Will Anderson Jr. It was also announced by the SEC yesterday that the Ole Miss game time is going to be 2:30 on CBS, and that means our radio coverage will start at 11:30 a.m. next week as we get to enjoy a little bit of time at Bryant-Denny Stadium over the next 2 weeks. First of all with Southern Miss and then against Ole Miss. So again, the game time is 2:30 against the Ole Miss Rebels. And then Saturday, of course, Southern Miss, 6:30 p.m. start time. Our radio coverage on Saturday will begin at 3:30, and certainly hope all of you can join us at the Grocery Brew Pub for our pregame and postgame shows, as we'll have a lot of fun breaking down Alabama against Southern Miss. Another couple of sports that are underway on campus here at Alabama. The Crimson Tide soccer team was able to bounce back after losing in their SEC opener at Ole Miss last Friday. It was a good win, 3-0 against Utah Valley, as Ashlyn Sarepkin continues getting goals for the Crimson Tide. She had a good brace against Virginia, or she's a Virginia transfer, a good brace against Utah Valley, but great to see that. Great as well to see the performance of McKinley Crone, Alabama's goalkeeper. Did not allow a goal, clean shutout for her, 6 saves on the match. Coming up on Thursday, Alabama right back in play in SEC action now for the rest of the season, and it will be the Crimson Tide hosting Missouri Tigers 7 p.m. on SEC Network Plus. So SEC play has already started for the soccer team. How about for Lindsey Devine and the volleyball team? Last weekend they had a great start, 3-0 at the Bama Bash, getting wins over Houston, which is a great opponent, Western Carolina, as well as Tennessee Tech. We saw Kimberly McElroy get plenty of kills for Alabama. Great attacks by her. She was the Bama Bash MVP. And now volleyball starts playing conference action against Texas A&M, a really good team that had won 6 in a row just prior to losing last time out against number 1 Texas. So that's the match coming up tomorrow, 6 p.m. at Foster Auditorium. If you can't make it on campus, you can also watch on SEC Network Plus. And then just a few reminders right before we get ready for Alabama against Southern Miss this weekend. Alabama Athletics is strongly urging everybody coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium this Saturday to go ahead and download your mobile tickets, parking passes now. Make sure you know what gate you're going to, and then have everything ready to go. If you have an iPhone, Apple Wallet is so easy to use. There's more information available on RolledTide.com. You have an Android, also same deal. You're able to get these tickets loaded in early. If you're watching this right now, make sure you go ahead and download those tickets now. Make sure they're in your wallets, ready to go before you get to Bryant-Denny Stadium. That'll make things just easier for everybody coming up on Saturday for Alabama against Southern Miss, and then the next week as well for Alabama against Ole Miss. So just have these reminders ready. Make sure you download your tickets now and parking passes. It'll make your game day experience in Tuscaloosa so much better. We'll start this show with our booth cam highlights from the Swamp, and you'll notice these highlights go back and forth a little bit as we did have a few technical difficulties in Gainesville, but we did not see difficulties for the Crimson Tide getting this win against Florida, 31-29 the final score. Now we'll take you inside the booth as Eli Gold calls all the great moments from Alabama's win against Florida.
Good afternoon, everybody, or for those of you listening in Alabama, good morning to you, and welcome to a place that we have not seen in a decade's time. We're live today at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Florida Field, Steve Spurrier Field, as the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Florida Gators get set to meet. It is going to be a meeting that overall is going to happen for the 42nd time.
Last week was a lot of fun, and the week before was a lot of fun as well. We got 2 wins, but right now is when the games really start and the fun really gets really exciting because it's an SEC game, and not only that, it's on the road. So, as a team, you got to pack in together. It's just you versus everybody in the stadium. And you build a bond, you build a brotherhood, you build a lot of character for your football team today. So I'm excited to see, what this 2021 team is going to look like.
2nd and goal from the 7. Bama trying to score first here today. Chase McClellan, the running back. Bryce claps his hands 2 or 3 times. Not that they can hear him. He'll now send the running back in motion. He throws it out on the left side. Chase has it. Stiff arms the tackler. And he'll dive to the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Billingsley in motion. The tight end comes closer to the left side of the formation. Meanwhile, JoJo Earl goes in motion. The quarterback looks his way, then throws. Man is wide open. Over the shoulder. Billingsley. Touchdown, Alabama. They lost sight of Billingsley. He was...
So we're in a huddle. Probably going to be a quick snap.
The quarterback under center. Here's the give. Touchdown, Alabama, with a run off the left side. A nice block by Robbie Oots, the tight end who came in, opening up that side for Brian Robinson. Touchdown, Alabama, from 2 yards away. Now the 2-point conversion to tie it. Alabama 31-29. This is a huge play. Inside 3 minutes to go in the 4th quarter. From the 3. 2-point conversion try. The running back, and he'll get to the 1, and he is stopped. He is stopped. Alabama holds on the 2-point conversion. Justin Eboigbe and Will Anderson stop the Gators on a 2-point conversion at the 2-yard line. The quarterback stands back at his own 19. The snap. Quarterback under pressure. He'll dance around. He'll escape. He'll go to the far side. Taken down by Alabama. And that is going to be the ball game. Wow. Alabama staying with the quarterback and finally putting him down. Goodness gracious. What a day. What a day. What a day.
All the energy from inside the booth cam, and the booth cam presented to us by Royal Furniture. Make sure you watch that each and every Alabama game day, as we'll have that here on our Facebook page, so you can not only listen to Eli Gold, John Parker Wilson, Rashad Johnson, Chris Stewart call the game, but you get to watch them as well. And again, we'll have that coming up for this Saturday's game at home when Alabama hosts Southern Miss. Well, we're starting to think more about Southern Miss as we start gearing up for Alabama's 4th game of the season, and this week started with head coach Nick Saban having his Monday press conference at noon, and here is Coach's checklist, the big 3 things you need to know from Coach Saban's press conference yesterday here in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, well, after looking at the film, we played really, really well for the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the game. Had 3 straight scoring drives, got some stops on defense, executed fairly well, and then sort of stalled on offense. 3 series in a row, we went 3 and out. Started making some mistakes on defense. They scored, got back in the game. Momentum of the game changed, and we became, kind of an ordinary team. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this situation, especially playing on the road against a good team. You can't let up in a game. You got to be able to sustain and play Alabama football for 60 minutes in the game. I can't relinquish big leads. So there's a lot of things for our players to learn in terms of what we could do better from an execution standpoint, and how we need to sustain our intensity for 60 minutes in the game so we can play Alabama football. There's another opportunity and another challenge this week against Southern Miss. These guys have played really well on defense. They're one of the toughest people to run against of anybody in the country. Offensively, I know their first quarterback got hurt, but Keys is a really athletic guy. They do some of the same kind of quarterback runs and things that we saw a week ago. They've got good skill players on offense. These guys play hard. They're well coached. So, this will be a challenging game for us. I thought the offensive line did a good job. We had decent protection for the most part. They do some, pretty good pressures that we were able to, pick up. I think that they played a little different front with their nickel people. Kind of a 5-1 with an extra guy coming in the box from the secondary someplace that we had not seen much of before. We had to adapt to that in the game. I thought the players did a good job of adapting to it. So I think a little more consistency in the running game, a little more finish and blocks. But I was not disappointed in the job that those guys did. I think they are improving. They're playing more and more together. They're playing better fundamentally. I think we just have to, it's like every other part of our team, a little more consistent, a little more consistency in performance. Block here, block there, finishing a block here and there will make a big difference in how we're able to run the ball in the future.
And that was Coach's Checklist from Monday, and Coach Saban next will be meeting with the media on Wednesday night. We'll have that for you with Coach's Checklist coming up once again on Thursday's edition of Crimson Drive presented by Coca-Cola. Coming up this Saturday, Alabama against Southern Miss, 6:30 under the lights at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and on the SEC Network, Tom Hart will have the call, so we figured it was a good time to catch up with him as part of our Big Picture segment, taking a national view of Alabama football. Let's catch up with Tom Hart of the SEC Network. Well, after Alabama against Southern Miss is done on Saturday, that means 4 Alabama football games have been played, and that means 2 of them have been called on television by Tom Hart and his crew of Jordan Rogers and Cole Kubelik. And Tom, it's great to see you once again, as Alabama fans are really getting used to you early in the season.
That's good. I don't know if they should strive for something better, though, but it's always fun to do Bama games, and looking forward to a night game in Tuscaloosa. That should be a lot of fun after the heat we had for the Mercer game.
And looking back at that Mercer game, you all guys also called the Florida season opener as well. Was there anything in those early games you saw from Alabama and Florida that kind of indicated what kind of game we may have this past Saturday?
Honestly, I was surprised with Florida's performance in the second half. I thought Anthony Richardson showed so much promise as a freshman quarterback that had been the most dynamic player on the field for Florida to that point of the season. When it was announced early on at the beginning of that game that he wasn't going to be playing, only an emergency situation, and coupled with Alabama's start, I thought there was no way Florida could make a game of it in the second half. So my eyes deceived me, and I'm still waiting, and I think this is a common theme, but still waiting for Alabama to put forward 4 quarters of elite level football. We've seen flashes of it, obviously, and we've seen snippets of it, but can they put together 4 quarters, and how soon can that happen?
What's impressed you so far about quarterback Bryce Young?
It's funny. Leading into the Florida game, my phone started not quite blowing up, but I got these texts from people who were going to be talking about Alabama, Florida, and they're looking for some insight. And they said, well, what's his weakness? I don't know what his weakness is. I texted Matt Stinchcomb. I said, poor penmanship. I mean, I don't know what it is. He's a young quarterback. And we saw that playing on the road in that environment, whether it was his fault or the offensive, incongruity that leads to some false starts. And there were some offensive penalties that they could certainly clean up. But he does so many things well. He plays beyond his years in the way he sees defenses and read defenses. He's really good making decisions, I feel, post-snap, especially in the RPO game. And he always seems to have him in the right place. So it's hard right now to find a weakness with him. And that is, as you know, very rare for a quarterback with that level of experience.
And then with the new offensive coordinator and Bill O'Brien, what's changed the most about this Alabama offense from what we saw before with Coach Sark, or has there been much change?
nothing's changed. Nothing. And I get the feeling that Bill would like to tweak a few things, right? I mean, the RPO at the NFL level is still very new. It's in its infancy, whether that's Kyler Murray or what they did with Deshaun Watson with the Texans. But I know that Bill's got a couple plays in his back pocket that he ran with Deshaun, and maybe they're copycats of what Deshaun ran at Clemson that he'd love to install. But I don't think Nick Saban wants to allow that. I think Saban says this is the offense that we run. You were hired with a very specific line in mind, and that is that we're going to continue running this. And Bill O'Brien's a great offensive mind. I mean, there was a time when he was on the staff at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech had a couple of really big games against Florida State back when Florida State was a power. They came to the line one time in 5 wide, and they checked the wishbone. Nobody does that. That doesn't happen. It especially didn't happen back then. So he's got a great versatile offensive mind that he learned from Ralph Friedgen, and I covered him at Penn State. He immediately came in and suspend, if you can, for a moment, what you think about Penn State at the time and what they went through off the field with Joe Paterno within the program. Just strictly from an offensive standpoint, I think it was very similar to what Les Miles and LSU were for a while. They were very stagnant offensively. They were predictable. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity. And so he came into an organization that needed a bolt of energy on the offensive side of the ball. And he doubled the number of passing plays they ran. They had some great seasons. And what I think is, in a modern era, the toughest coaching job I've ever seen, in terms of what's expected and the resources you have and the distractions that you have. I mean, they had private planes landing at the University Park Airport to recruit kids away in the middle of a season. So that's not an easy thing to deal with. So I think the offense is the same. I'm curious to see if Bill gets some leeway at some point during the season. If they feel like there needs to be growth, I think he could allow for and produce great growth within the offense. But it's not something that's needed at this point, in my opinion.
Based on what you saw Saturday, Alabama against Florida, what does this defense need to tighten up the most, starting with this ball game coming up against Southern Miss?
Great question. I just think execution. I mean, with the options that Florida ran, there were some missed assignments. That happens. Obviously, that's why whatever version of the option you're running, that's why it's so effective in the college game, because you're going to get missed assignments multiple times. This is I was just watching Southern Miss film a moment ago. This is Tuesday morning, so I haven't finished the entire thing while we're talking. But a freshman quarterback, a young but talented running back, they aren't going to be able to outrun Alabama to the edges like they can some of their other opponents. So I think this is kind of a get-right game, right? Let's make sure that we all know our assignments. You're going to be allowed to flow to the ball, come up with some big hits. There's improvement to be made for sure, especially in the run defense with the loss of Christopher Allen. I think at that linebacker spot, they could be more physical. But it's a matter of just doing what you're supposed to do. And isn't that the secret to success with Nick over the years? Just it's very Belichickian. Just do your job and do your job to the best of your ability. And we got 10 other guys doing their job. We're going to be just fine.
Well, you guys did your job a couple of weeks ago in Tuscaloosa wearing the plaid jackets for the broadcast against Mercer, and tribute, of course, to our late friend Luke Ratliff, Fluffopotamus. So what did it mean to you guys to have that gesture towards him? I know you got to know him a lot throughout basketball season especially, but he was just such a special Alabama fan. Yeah,
he had this exuberance for life and for Alabama basketball, for Alabama football, but just this joie de vivre, if I want to drop some French on you, because I know Fluff would appreciate it. Every time I walked into Coleman Coliseum for a game, he was already there. And it was, Tom, come on over here. Get over here, dude. Let's take a picture, blah, blah, blah. What do you think about the game? Last time I saw him was the SEC basketball tournament. And we had this long conversation in the seating bowl about what was next for him and graduation. And, can I find him a job and working on my neighbors who worked for a certain company that he was interested in perhaps working for. It's funny, Roger, we didn't really plan that. It just happened. And so you wonder why things like that happen, right? I mean, Jordan Rodgers has more suits in his closet than I have socks, right? And he ends up wearing a plaid suit, and I've got, plenty to choose from. But as I plan my trip to Tuscaloosa, I just happened to grab a plaid one. And then Cole shows up with a plaid jacket. And as we're coming on the air, I kind of look around. We're down on the field before the game. Cole wasn't wearing his jacket. I didn't notice it. And then we go through rehearsal, and I'm looking around. I'm like, we're all wearing plaid. Are you serious? How did this happen? So I made the Wimp Sanderson reference, and Cole followed up with the fluff comment, and I was like, that's what happened. That's why those things happen. So yeah, maybe it's a thing. Maybe that's what I can continue to do to honor a great guy when I call Alabama games in the future, whether it's football or basketball or anything along those lines. And I think it's one of those things, Roger, and this is the secret to me in broadcasting, especially within the SEC. There's certain elements that register with fan bases, and it's different, right? What serves an Alabama football viewer is different than what serves a Kentucky basketball viewer or a Mississippi State baseball fan or a Georgia football fan. But if you can find those elements, if you can find those nuggets, it pulls the fan base in and says, man, these guys get it. They get what it's like to be a part of this. Then you can connect with the fan base, and they view you not as somebody who just parachuted in for this game and is talking about their program or to the fans. They view you as someone who was talking with them and someone who knows the program. And when I say program, it's more than just what happens inside the walls. So seems like we stumbled on something that could be pretty cool going forward.
That's something you guys do a great job of, you, Jordan, and Cole. Just why are you guys so tight? It seems like you have so much fun traveling. I know you're happy to just be traveling again this season after everything last year, but just talk about the chemistry you guys have together.
The first time I met Jordan, we were doing a spring tour at the University of Missouri, and that's where I went to school in my hometown. And so I said, yeah, show the guy around a little bit. We'll do some creative stuff. We end up doing a cryotherapy chamber with the Missouri training staff, where we are down to our skivvies in 100-degree below zero temperatures, in these body pods essentially. And I was like, this feels totally normal. It was the most abnormal thing ever. But I was like, this feels totally normal with a guy that I barely know. So I think for some reason we hit it off at the very beginning. The three of us, I think this is the secret to any partnership, right? Work, life, whatever, is it kind of going back to Saban and Belichick. Like, we know that everyone is going to do their job, and they're really good at their job. And we all bring something a little bit different to the table. And so there's this inherent trust that if I just do what I'm responsible for, I know those other two are going to do what they're responsible for. And now the sum of the parts is going to make for a great show. And it's going to be hopefully entertaining, more likely informative, because I got a guy who knows more about line play than anybody else on television. Got a guy who played quarterback in the SEC that watches more SEC film than everybody. And then the other part of that is we only cover the SEC, right? So we're not going off to, say, Penn State one weekend and Ohio State the next. And I've been to those places, and they're great, and it's fun to get diversity. But because we're just in this league, we get more time with coaches and players, and the relationship building is really really solid. Because, like, for example, we got Alabama twice in the first 4 weeks. Like you said, nobody else has done that. And now we have a great feel for the personnel for this year's team. So the bottom line is we like being around each other. We like hanging out, and our careers and our jobs mean a lot to us. So the trust that we have that they mean a lot to the other people helps us know that the work we put in is reciprocated on the other side.
With that, this will be the last question. Who runs the SEC The Weekend Twitter and Instagram account between the three of you? This is something I want to get to the bottom of for a while.
I don't know if I can divulge that answer. Let me just say that our friend Cole Kublik has multiple Twitter accounts on his phone. I'm just waiting for the one time he congratulates himself from his own account. That might happen sometime soon. And listen, it's what I just talked about, right? Everybody brings something different to the table. If we need a TikTok dance, we're going to Jordan. If I need a film breakdown, I'm going to Cole. And if somebody needs a smart aleck joke, I think I'm probably the guy that could provide it in a pinch.
It's pretty good. Well, you guys do a really good job. We can't wait to have you back in Tuscaloosa, Tom. Just thank you for joining us this week on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and safe travels to T-Town later in the week.
All right, Roger. Thanks for having me, bud.
Keep an eye on the SEC Weekend account following all the adventures of Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, Cole Kublik as they make their way to Tuscaloosa for the broadcast of Alabama against Southern Miss. Coming up on Saturday, they'll have the call on the SEC Network. Of course, we'll have the radio call here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network starting 3 hours prior to kickoff at 3:30. One of the other cool things that we get to do on our Tuesday editions of Crimson Drive presented by Coca-Cola is visit with Alabama legends. And this week, we have two honorary captains for the Southern Miss game, Bobby Humphrey as well as Wayne Davis. And we had a chance to catch up with Wayne. He's the all-time leading tackler in Alabama history, just loves Alabama football, and I think you'll enjoy this conversation with Wayne, catching up on his career and everything that he's been up to since his playing days came to a close in Tuscaloosa. Wayne, it's great to see you, the all-time leading tackler at the University of Alabama. How's everything going?
It's going wonderful, Roger. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
First of all, what does it mean to you to be an honorary captain and get to be recognized inside Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday, but also all the events you have coming up this week?
Oh, man, just the fact that we're being asked to come back is certainly an honor. Anytime, you get back to the campus itself, it's a joy, opportunity to see all of the festivities, the friends, and then just the game itself is going to be wonderful.
We're really looking forward to it as Alabama's off to a 3-0 start this season. Have you enjoyed watching the Crimson Tide so far this year?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They kind of gave me a little scare there at the end on Saturday, but hey, Coach Saban has that tenacity, man. He's been there, done that. We got a lot of young guys, but I think they're going to live up to the billing. I was listening to Coach earlier today, and he was stressing how important it is to really have good practices. So that's what they're going to dwell on. They're going to be fine.
Certainly looks like that will be the case for the Crimson Tide in 2021. But Wayne, for a moment, let's step back in time a little bit to your high school days. First of all, what made you decide to choose the University of Alabama from nearby Gordo?
Well, it was all about Coach Bryant for me, man. I tell you, growing up in rural Gordo here, Alabama, in my opinion, was the team. And Coach Bryant, somebody that I've always, wanted to play for, even coming up through Little League, Pop Warner football. And to me, Alabama was the place to go. And I was just fortunate enough, to have the God-given ability to play the position of linebacker. And Bama gave me that opportunity with the help of Coach Perkins, of course, and then Coach Kroom recruiting me out of Gordo.
No doubt about it. And what was that transition like from high school football to college football as you continue to learn the position of linebacker and learn that it's a very tough position in college football and in the SEC especially?
Absolutely. No doubt it was a transition, coming from a small school, 2A at the time, and then going to a huge place like Bama and trying to step in and play. And I was fortunate enough to play, quite a bit my freshman year. And following that, the transition, no doubt, was a huge transition from this small town to big time college football, man. So I embraced it. And, the rest is history.
Certainly is. And for you, you had one of your best days in Crimson against Texas A&M back in 1985 as you had 24 tackles in that game. For a long time, it was the school record until D'Amico Ryans had, I believe, 25 in one game. But what was working for you that day? I mean, you were always around the football against the Aggies back in 85.
One of the things I believe is a blessing for a linebacker to have, man, is number one, you got to want to get to the ball. And then on top of that, you got to have some defensive linemen who takes care of their responsibilities and fits the gaps. And then you're able to flow. You're able to flow. You're not going laterally, but you're going downhill. And I think that makes a difference. So that game that I made 24 or 25 tackles in was due in great part, no doubt, to our defensive linemen. Guys like John Hand and Brent Sewell and Kirk Jarvis, all those guys, man, getting them big linemen off you so you can flow to the ball.
Well, you still have the school record for 327 tackles that you had during your Alabama career. Is there one common thread to all the great tackling you had? And do you get frustrated sometimes watching modern college football? Maybe the tackling is not as sharp as it was in your day?
Well, we did have a lot of snaps during my career there at Bama now. So that certainly contributed to it a lot. But I think the main thing goes back to what I said earlier. At a linebacker position, man, you got to be saying, hey, I'm going to make the tackle. And have that mindset. But at the same time, you want to be aware that, hey, you are playing within inside of a scheme. So it's just the grit of wanting to get to the ball. I don't think I have nothing more than all the rest of the players has, just blessed by God. And at the same time, being in the right place at the right time, going sideline to sideline. And on top of that, the modern day game is a whole lot more pass. So, so the opportunity back then to make more tackles and make more plays from the run perspective was on my side, whereas today you got guys really throwing the ball a whole lot more.
They certainly are. And for you, again, a great career at Alabama. We mentioned the Texas A&M game in 85. Any other games that you're particularly proud of, or any times with your teammates that you still have great memories of to this day?
I tell you, 1985, I guess, man, when Van Tiffin made that kick, brother, I'm telling you, that was one of the joys of my career there at Bama. The 1985 kick by Van, and I think all the guys will say the same. It was an absolute joy, and to do it against Auburn as well, that was even that was even greater. Nothing against Auburn, great institution, but it's just the competitiveness of the game. But that one comes to mind the most for me.
How hard was it to tackle Bo Jackson?
Bo, I tell you, man, his acts speaks for themselves. Bo was a legitimate running back, man. No doubt about it. Speed, size, awareness, and as far as a linebacker, tackling a running back, he was one of the toughest. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I think I got a picture behind me in this corner right here. Yeah, there it is, right there. Bo going over the top. I think that was 85. Frankly, I still don't think he scored, but they gave it to him. But that's just the way it that's just the way it goes. But yeah, absolutely tough athlete. Great man, great family man, and we enjoy competing against him, no doubt about it. First class guy.
Well, he went on from Auburn to the NFL, and of course, you went on to the NFL as well. What can you tell us about your career after your days in Tuscaloosa came to a close?
Yeah, I was at Bama from 1983 to 86, and was fortunate enough to get drafted in the 9th round to the then St. Louis Cardinals. And of course, the franchise moved to Phoenix. Got a chance to play for the Cardinals for 2 years, and it just so happened Coach Stallings was the actual head coach out there, and I believe Coach Mal Moore was out there as well. So we played two seasons with the Cardinals. Went on into the World Football League and played a couple of years there. Actually spent about 20 years out in Arizona before me and my family moved back to Gordo in 2007, in 2007. And I've been pastoring here at my church. I'm in my church office now, but I've been pastoring here for the last 13 years. God has been blessing. Been trying to stay involved as much as possible in the community with our youth football, and then again getting involved in things to help Pickens County to increase its vaccination rates here in Pickens County. So we've been busy.
That's really important work. And for you, I know a lot of Alabama fans were thrilled to see another Davis on the field when your son Ben got to suit up for the Crimson Tide. Just what did you feel when you saw him on that field in an Alabama uniform for the first time and playing throughout his Alabama career?
Let me say pretty much what Ben said when he transferred to Texas, and that is he thanks God for the opportunity to have played at Bama. Thanks Coach Saban for giving him that chance, all of the staff, all the weight staff, the medical staff there. But it was a joy to see him on the field and on the Bama football team, So all the class in the world he demonstrated, I think, in his exit, but he thanks the most all of the friends that he made. And then on top of that, getting a undergraduate degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in environmental science. Just thanks Bama, a tremendous opportunity. Absolutely.
Certainly a lot to be proud of. Well, Wayne Davis, we're really excited for you to be back on campus coming up on Saturday as one of our honorary captains. Just enjoy the entire day and all the festivities you guys have coming up for the Southern Miss game. And just thank you so much for joining us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network.
Roger, thank you. Roll Tide, man.
Fun conversation with Wayne Davis, the all-time leading tackler in Crimson Tide football history. Can't wait to celebrate him, as well as Bobby Humphrey coming up at Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday as our honorary captains. We're gearing up for Alabama against Southern Miss, and we're only halfway done this week on the Crimson Tide Sports Network in terms of Crimson Drive presented by Coca-Cola, as we will also be back with you coming up on Thursday at 2 p.m. Central, and already we have the guest list set, as we'll be joined by Michael Casagrande of AL.com as our Writers Row conversation. Then we'll have the other booth visiting with the voice of the Southern Miss Golden Eagles, John Cox, who has been calling Southern Miss football for 44 years. So we'll get to hear from him. Eli Gold as well will be with us to give us a Hey Coach preview as we're gearing up for Thursday night's edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show from Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Plus we'll have comments from Coach Saban. So a very busy Thursday edition of Crimson Drive presented by Coca-Cola is still to come, but we'd like to say a big thank you to Wayne Davis, Tom Hart, our guest for today. Thanks as well to our Facebook Live producer, Ethan Carabin, putting all of this together once again for all of you. For everybody with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying thank you for watching Roll Tide. We'll see you again on Thursday at 2 p.m. Central for Crimson Drive presented by Coca-Cola.